just above Parkersburg. Shinston, Martinsburg, the very first line of their proposal, if you pull it up, says, "We are proud to say that upon being approved by the Home Rule Board, we will generate more than $2.4 million in additional revenue for the city of Martinsburg." Morgantown, similar kind of a thing. They're talking about how much more money they're going to raise. There's absolutely not one single penny guaranteed to the city of Buckhannon that's going to be raised. We're talking about quality of life issues that are addressed as these four big planks. And my hat is really off to Mr. Doss. I think he has done an absolute superb job of organizing the materials, and I'm real excited about it.
I refuse to buy a mistake there.
You could give them one. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to declare this public meeting adjourned, and I will call to order the regular meeting of the Buckhannon City Council. And we have on our agenda Jody Light wants to talk about the meth abatement ordinance. You're on.
I'm on, huh?
Squirt.
Wake up. You tell me right now.
We go back a long way.
Just a day or two. Okay. Because I'm afraid to ask a question. Jude. Yeah, go ahead and wake up. Pizza's on the way. We just have to go ahead and order because it's going to be a long meeting. I have a feeling. I've got this in writing, but I thought, you know, I don't know, I was going to defer till after we did the meth abatement thing, but that might be about, you know, breakfast time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. As some of you know, I am not a long-winded person, so I wrote everything out, so I didn't get off track. Basically, I'm here, and you said to bring landlords, and I think we have, give me a show of hands, I think we have about 14 or 15 landlords, I think. So it is, this whole topic is a big concern for us. So I want to thank you, first of all, for just allowing me and the landlords to be here and to at least discuss some of the things. I've kind of picked a couple brains here recently, but didn't get as many answers as I hope maybe we can get and go ahead. I can't speak for everyone in the city limits, obviously, but several of them have voiced concern. Hopefully we can get some answers this evening. Since this adoption of this ordinance could indeed create a significant financial burden on the area landlords, and it could potentially bankrupt some, it's important that we as landlords fully understand some of the items, which to me seem, and I think some of the rest of us think, are rather vague and a little confusing, but we're not attorneys, so hopefully we can get some answers. Really want to say, and I'm going to stress this, nothing that I'm asking or any concerns are meant to be arrogant or argumentative or flippant or taken lightly. I mean, we really have some just concerns. We just need some clarification. I apologize if some of these answers, I think Dave did a revision this afternoon. I got a new copy at 3 o'clock, so there may be some answers in here to the questions I already had that you addressed that I didn't have. My first question, and I thought probably the easiest thing is just to read through the questions. I'll hand them out to you. We probably can't get them all addressed this evening. But my first question is, the main thing is, since there is a state law already that pretty much addresses this, just curious why we as a city need an additional ordinance. There's got to be a reason behind that. I would like that one answered, and then I'm just going to go ahead and throw out questions.
There are some conflicts between the federal EPA guidelines, not law,
right,
and the state law.
Okay.
There are, out of 100 possible ways by which the meth contamination abatement issue could be looked at, and I think I'm saying this correctly based upon what the so-called meth guru, Brandon Lewis with Charleston, the Department of Health and Human Resources, has told us. In 98 out of those 100 instances, the state law, which we're all required to abide by right now, is more restrictive than the federal voluntary guidelines. There are a couple of situations that could arise in which the guidelines are better. Mr. Lewis was on the EPA team that came up with those, everything. So he knows the state and federal law both very well. The advantages to this ordinance that are not available under state law, that had been in a bill that was not approved by the state legislature, didn't find its way out of committee, was the establishment of a registry which is helpful to property owners, particularly landlords. And secondly, there are several more penalty situations relative to signage and reentry that are not in the current state law. It's basically taking the current state law, the current voluntary EPA guidelines, and adding the other things the Department of Health and Human Resources would have liked to have seen in the amended legislation and incorporating it in Buckhannon.
Okay. I think I got that. And now I'm just going to read some of the questions and concerns I have, and if you really want to jump in, that's great. And and then I'll give them to you because they're really important to some of us, and there's others out there. Since it appears that the determination of a need of an inspection rests with the, I think, Buckhannon Police Department, DHHR, and the city zoning office, would that create a new position, or would it just go with the current zoning office? Would there be additional compensation? There's a lot of references to that zoning officer going to have a lot of work to do.
Everything is assigned. The police chief is required as a matter of law. As a matter of law, right now, the police chief, upon determining through some criminal investigation that a particular site has been used for meth manufacture or usage, he's required to contact the DHHR right now. Has to do that. What this ordinance does is allows Mr. Clemens, as the housing enforcement officer, to also directly receive that notice and then to act as the local liaison and in conjunction with the DHHR, which is vastly understaffed. They got one full-time person that covers all 55 counties in the state of West Virginia. So Brandon Lewis is advocating this local connectedness so that he can do more things out of Charleston, counting on housing enforcement officers all over the place to kind of post the signs, take the photographs that are necessary, work in closer relationship with the local police that, hey, somebody said they saw somebody in that house that's been posted. Can you do an extra drive-by to do that? Can you imagine the difficulty with 70-some incorporated cities, 55 county agencies, 55 state police detachments, and you're one guy in Charleston trying to coordinate all of those police agency activities. So I think we will be way more attentive to those that are going to try to violate the law as a consequence of these local liaisons.
Have you found any other municipalities in the state? We can't locate any that have passed this. I have the Kanawha County ordinance, but can't find any other cities in West Virginia that have passed a similar ordinance. Just out of curiosity, anyone aware of anybody else?
As far as I know, it's Kanawha County, and the city of Buckhannon will be the second one.
Okay, so there is, okay. But we didn't know if we were right on that, but.
This is being offered as a model ordinance that other municipalities, and that's one of the reasons we want it to be as tight as we can make it, because we anticipate that other communities around us that are watching what Buckhannon's going to do, that this will be the starting point for them as well.
Okay. When I started looking at this, I really, every day you see, I think it was just last weekend, we see meth arrests. So I had no idea. Does anyone know, and those who I've told you don't say, anyone know how many meth arrests there were, meth-related arrests in the city limits in 2013? Tom?
I don't know.
How many meth arrests were there in the city of Buckhannon in 2013? That's not fair. He knows, probably. Anyone know? What do you think? Huh?
Do you?
Yeah,
How many?
I do. Anyone want to guess? How many meth arrests? 5. Most people that I asked that question said 50, 75, 100. And I have to admit I was shocked. But when I contrasted that with the Sheriff's Department, they had 67 drug-related arrests, 17 that I can identify that were operating or attempting to operate a meth lab. It seems like the larger drug problem is in the county. One of the concerns we have is passing this ordinance only in the city, and we can't speak for the county, we understand that, and we've had that actually joked us, we're just going to drive them in the county. I mean, is that really what we want to do? We want to drive them out of Upshur County, I would think. So just doing it here seems a little bit half-hearted. Maybe we need to look at it bigger. So here, let me go to my questions. Those were the things, that really stunned me when I heard there was only 5 Matt's not here, so I don't know. I was gonna ask the question if you knew if there was any of those arrests that were made in or utilizing a rental property. I don't know if he has that answer, I just know it was only 5. Do we know how many arrests, what type of arrests have been in the first 4 months of the year? I thought no? Okay. So we had 5. And anything over 0 is too much, I understand, but I just expected it to be higher. The questions that I have, and I'm gonna give you all copies of this, is based on looking at this ordinance, the things that I don't understand. Does the ordinance require inspection, testing, and a possible cleanup of a unit where a person is arrested for possession of ingredients used to manufacture meth, but no active meth lab? If a person is arrested for operating or attempting to operate a meth lab, requiring a property inspection, testing, and cleanup, and the charges are later dropped, who bears the cost? Could be a big cost from what I'm hearing. If the charges are dropped later, or the person is found not guilty, but the initial meth lab inspection and testing were done, who's going to bear those costs? The real concern that I have, and I think that's the biggest deviation from the state law that I could find, in addition to meth, the ordinance references all over the place other controlled substances throughout the document. And I guess that's my biggest question, specifically what other controlled substances that, and that could be oxycodone prescription, that can be, and I think you were quoted, Dave, in the paper, someone asked you, and I think it was Tom, does that include marijuana? And you said it could.
It could.
That raises flags for me. So, let's say that it does include marijuana. Is an inspection and testing required for all types of controlled substance arrests? For example, a person is arrested for smoking marijuana or possession in a rental unit. Does that mean that we have to have it tested and inspected and abated? A person is arrested for a pill-type substance. And I've talked to a couple people. I don't care if you have 100 or 1,000 oxycodone pills on your living room floor and you're arrested. That doesn't seem to leave a residue. Is that going to require testing, inspection, and cleanup? Those are just things that we have concerns about. And it just, you go. So then you get into, if you go into marijuana. And most of everything I said, it said you have to use a professional certified thing. There are marijuana, I didn't think there were. There are marijuana test kits out there for $9.95 that you get a swipe test and do that. Is that something that the landowners could possibly do or do we have to go to a licensed individual or company, which obviously the cost would skyrocket? Do you have, or is there a list of companies or individuals certified to specifically inspect, test, and perform cleanup of marijuana residue? There is not, so far. I've not found. And I did call some of the, and I think a couple of the other landowners called. We wanted to find that out because marijuana opens the whole other ball of wax. What type of cleanup method and related costs is associated to remove marijuana residue? And the first company that I called, who also has 500 rental units, I said, he laughed at me, and I said, well, what do you use to clean up marijuana residue? And he went, Febreze. He said, we can put in an ion, and clean the air. But so far, and I've asked several people, and I'm not trying to be flippant, it's just, that was his answer. There is no professional, and I've had 3 of them tell me there's no professional cleaning abatement thing for marijuana residue. But it's in here, and that's what concerns us, is where we're going to go with this.
Can I interrupt
Sure,
you? Maybe
sure.
answer a few of these questions
Absolutely.
before you pose some more. I'm trying to remember the last 7 or 8 you posed.
Here, Dave, let me give you a list. I'll give you
No,
a
that's
list.
right. I think, let me say this. There will be no testing done by any person associated with the city of Buckhannon. The ordinance is very clear that we are adopting all facets of the state law. Brandon Lewis and the DHHR will decide whether a particular property needs to be inspected, okay? And then if it needs to be tested after the inspection is done, and then after the test results come back as to whether there needs to be contamination abatement. That is all done in Charleston. The state law right now does not say meth contamination abatement. It's meth contamination abatement and other drugs that leave a residue. Marijuana in its classic form, like we know from the hippies and beatniks in the 60s and 70s that smoke it, not a residue problem.
Right.
But according to Brandon Lewis, when you start mixing it with other drugs, such as some of the synthetic bath salts and other things of that nature, those things leave a residue. So when I said before that, when the question was posed, would marijuana ever constitute another drug that's also related to the meth abatement, maybe in certain instances. We wouldn't determine that as a city. Brandon Lewis and the Contamination Abatement Squad with the DHHR would make that determination. But like they're going to do whether this ordinance is adopted or not.
Okay.
A lot of times Brandon Lewis is dispatched to sites where people are making these bath salts in bathtubs. It's not always methamphetamine.
Right.
I don't think pills generally leave a residue.
Exactly, but
So
when it says,
I don't think that would qualify.
I'll let you cheat.
But I don't want to speak for Brandon Lewis on that either.
That was a concern, you can understand that, because
Sure.
when you start bringing in other controlled substances and everywhere through that ordinance, it specifies that, and when you specifically said marijuana might, we had to start doing that, because it says to me is, and again, you're saying the Charleston people make that determination. Someone's busted for smoking pot or possession in one of my rental units. Does that immediately trigger a testing, an abatement?
No.
Okay,
But
I'm gonna write that down.
if the police officers, in the course of investigating the smell of marijuana, and they now get a warrant, or based upon the plain smell doctrine in this instance, proceed to make an arrest, and as they enter those premises, find other things, they're like, whoa, there are some other things pointing to meth and or other residuary drug contamination stuff, then they are required to contact Charleston. So that's
Well, that makes
the
sense,
reason.
that's an additional thing beyond marijuana.
That's
Okay.
right.
Some of the other concerns we have, and again, you may not be able to answer these, it may go back to state, but it's things that we as landlords are concerned about. If a tenant is arrested for operating or attempting to operate an active meth lab in a rental unit, does the landlord have the right to immediately evict that tenant and his or her family without repercussion? Is the landlord responsible for alternative housing for the arrested individual's family while testing and potential cleanup operations are performed? Because it does say in the ordinance that there's a $500, and I'll get to that later, but there is a $500 per day fee if anyone fails to vacate the property or if you remove signs, and I'll get to that later. But the landlords have to say, where is our, not just responsibility, because you're right, the state's putting a lot of this on, but there are additional things in the city ordinance. If a land, go
Let me
ahead.
speak to the landlord-tenant law.
Sure.
That is a matter of state statute.
Right.
The city of
I
Buckhannon,
understand.
right now, maybe under the home rule plan, if we are successful in that application, it could be something that we looked at to change that. The city of Buckhannon cannot change the statutes of West Virginia relative to eviction of tenants.
Gotcha. If a landlord, we just have to think of these things going into this.
Sure.
If a landlord evicts a tenant that is arrested for making or attempting to make meth, the charges are later dropped, the tenant is not found guilty, would the landlord then face the possibility of legal action by the evicted tenant for false eviction? Those are just things we're thinking about.
No, I would say that the landlord faces the possibility of an action no matter what. Anybody can sue anybody for anything at any time.
You're right.
However, the issue then would become, it becomes a matter of civil liability, and then the burden of proof would then go from the beyond a reasonable doubt of the criminal context to the preponderance of the evidence in a civil context, and the probable cause, generally you could expect that the probable cause allowing for the arrest would suffice to meet the preponderance of the evidence standard to justify the eviction. So I think as a practical matter, you probably wouldn't. But you guys know, tenants can sue you anyway, even without, merit.
I want to also point out that it's not necessary for there to be a criminal charge before the DHHR's meth folks become engaged with checking out a site. The criminal justice process really is separate and apart from anything that's contained in this ordinance. Brandon Lewis, he would tell you that the vast majority of the sites that he is summoned to, there may or may not have been someone already arrested, but certainly no adjudication. The criminal justice system with drug charges, I would say that it's on average going to take a year for that person to be processed through the system. You can't wait a year for a conviction and have a motel that has been contaminated or an apartment complex that has been contaminated and allow people to continue to go in there and breathe these toxic things that are comprised with the drugs. That's the reason that these administrative rules and regs trump anything that happens with the criminal justice process.
Again, just questions we have. If the tenant's released on bail pending trial or disposition of charges, which you just said could take a very long time, would the landlord be required, you may want to address this, to allow the tenant and his or her family to remain in that unit?
Everybody has to, if the state says everybody out, everybody out.
But if they're released, they've been now booked and they've been released.
But again,
do
it's
we
a
have to-
separate track. I mean, these are two parallel tracks. The criminal prosecution track is separate from the contamination abatement
Right.
and reoccupancy track. I mean, these are,
Okay.
Brandon Lewis can issue an order on site to prohibit anyone from going into a particular dwelling house, apartment, dormitory, motel complex. He can order it right there on site.
So that put the onus on him and not us?
Yes,
That's good.
absolutely.
So if a tenant, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to throw it out, if a tenant is arrested for operating a meth lab at a location other than his or her rented unit, and we've seen that, vehicles, trunks, another one. And again, that's probably not something you can answer, but would that automatically probably would generate a search and inspection of their home that they rent from us?
I can't imagine the police.
I would think it would be.
following up with
That's why I
that.
said, okay. And I think you answered this, who makes the decision to require this inspection? That's going to go, Buckhannon
The judge
Police
will
found
warrant.
it, that goes on to,
that would be a one.
Charleston.
That would have,
okay. I think you answered that, that's why I said.
Brandon Lewis would make that decision whether
Now,
to
here's the fun.
inspect, test, and abate.
Let's just say you go in hypothetically, and there's reason and cause to do testing, and they're telling us it could be upwards of $1,000. Actually, a gentleman today told me it could be $2,000 for a two-bedroom unit. So now they have done the testing, it comes back negative. Does the landlord still bear the cost of that?
well, I don't think that's a question for this ordinance. I think that's a matter, what's this, I don't know what state law.
Well, just, I mean, I'm going to give
Yeah.
these to you, and hopefully you can find, because we're really, there's, I mean, that's why I say it's kind of vague and confusing.
Who
I don't-
triggers the investigation?
Huh?
Who triggers the investigation? Who's
I
the
guess-
authority that says,
Buckhannon City Police.
okay,
But again, if they're rendered negative,
Buckhannon City Police are required by state law to contact the DHHR. That entity, that office charged with then coming in and doing the first inspection, they determine whether you have to advance to testing. It's not the city of Buckhannon. Police officer would be violating the law. I think it's a misdemeanor offense if our police officers, all of them, don't make that contact with the DHHR. So it's, the inspection is triggered, I guess, by the police, but the police don't have any discretion in making that contact. And if the state of West Virginia says you shall test this, and a cost is incurred relative to the testing, and it comes back negative, I don't think you look to the city of Buckhannon for that $1,000 you're talking about.
yeah, we're just
It's-
not sure which way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, I don't know though.
Yeah.
That would not be a
We don't
city-
know either, that's why we're asking.
Yeah.
Is council aware of, or maybe you've looked into this, I guess you've been researching this, any resources at all? Because someone said to us once when we mentioned this, just start in your insurance company. So far, none of us, and maybe someone else's, but several of us have contacted, we even went to the West Virginia Board of Risk Insurance. Nobody can find insurance for that at all. In fact, I talked to a gentleman who does abatements. He has 500 units in Charleston. He also does the cleanup and abatements. And he said his insurance now is $330,000 a year for his rental properties. If he could even get it, there is a company, Henderson something, it would more than double. So I mean, that's, again, we're just looking at, what it does to us.
It used to be that you could go through the Crime Victims Fund, but
I know,
they
that's
changed
what
that
just
this year.
changed in March. Again, this may go back to landlord-tenant law, but it's just questions we have. To comply as fully as possible in protecting our rental units and innocent tenants that might want to rent from us, would a landlord who refuses to rent to or evicts a tenant based on the proposed registry, which I do like, risk a discrimination litigation possibility? Would the city, probably not, uphold and defend the landlord's right to do so based on the consequences of this ordinance? Do you see where I'm going with that, Dave?
Yeah, I think that is the person going to allege that they were discriminated against on the basis of them being a drug manufacturer?
Well, if they're on a list, people have been on the list, then have been since, it's been disposed of and they've been found innocent. But if we get that list, and I like the idea of the list, and I applaud you for doing that, but if we would fail to or refuse someone based on, it's just something we got to look at as a litigation. I'm hoping you and Tom are going to be here to
I think
defend us.
every single
Good
landlord
luck.
in the state of West Virginia right now should be very, very vigilant in who they rent to. Background checks, very, very careful screening. Where did you live previously? A lot of landlords don't do those kinds of things. So this meth abatement, contamination abatement ordinance really is just doing some very commonsensical, landlords, do your due diligence. And we're going to help you do your due diligence as we have people who have lived at other premises as tenants, as other occupants of motels, dormitories, whatever. If we get a positive hit on their test, they're going on the registry.
Right.
And that's information you don't have right now.
And we look forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to zip through some of these because, the pizza will probably be here anytime, so I don't want to hold
I
anybody
hope
up.
so.
As I'm supposed to, I know. Or someone will fall asleep. And you just touched on exactly what I was going to, if a landlord does the background check to the best of their ability, performs periodic unit inspections, but a tenant still arrested for a meth charge, is there any recourse that you know of that the landlord has, if any? Because again, we're going to have all those costs. I'm going to keep going so you can think about those. You've got
As against the city, or?
what recourse in general? We're just looking for answers. Can a landlord's lease, and you two can address this, I think. There's currently a 24-hour notice to inspect a property, although the state statute does give landlord-tenant law in cases of an immediate problem, the right to enter. Can a landlord's lease include voluntary verbiage that could allow the landlord permission to perform random unit inspections that would supersede that law? If it's signed, my understanding is in a lease
I
that they...
don't know. It depends on if that right is waivable in the statute or
Okay,
not.
that's what I don't know.
I don't know. I'm
Something
not-
to think about.
That's a very interesting question.
I hope we have a few. Even if a landlord, and we've talked about this before the last time, even if a landlord inspects a unit, and we could do it right here, ingredients for meth, as we know, could easily be stored out of sight unless the landlord does a very thorough invasive search. We could literally walk through here and there could be meth labs acting or all the ingredients in your closet or anything, we wouldn't know it unless we start opening doors, opening cabinets. But once we do that, now to me, that's an invasion of privacy. I don't want to go there, and I don't think the landlord's going to go there. That's a concern we have. Respecting their, yes.
This, I didn't get to the training that we gave, that the chief did. Did you attend that?
Yeah, a stalker? Or no.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the one? Okay, yeah.
Were there indications, were there any part of that training that taught you how to look for? Could we expand on that a little bit?
The question I had there, and I've done a lot of these things because our Rotary Club, as you know, does the awareness thing. The thing I noticed is we had people there that were going, what's a cold pack? They don't understand that that's the cold pack that you cut. I didn't know that till recently. Instead of using help me out here, what is it? They're using the cold pack as the igniter, which they used to use the lithium batteries, is that right?
Nitrogen in it.
Yes. But anyway, they slid those open, and if you find those, but if they'd had pictures and maybe more specifics that we could distribute to landlords, that would help a lot, I think. Because they don't know what to look for, they truly don't.
We might get with Matt and see if we could
That would be helpful.
Well, Mayor,
enhance that class a little bit.
we videotaped the previous workshop, and I think we are planning on making that available as a link
That would be nice.
on the city website, so anybody would be able to pull that up and watch the whole thing.
Well, we might be able to add to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was, Ron was there, it was vague.
Go ahead.
Okay. If a meth lab is discovered in a rental property and requiring inspection, testing, cleanup, and re-inspection, because you have to do the second inspection after the cleanup, which is an additional cost. What about the landlord, and you guys can address this, they can't afford to pay those costs. $10,000 to some of our small landlords will crush them. So what happens to that property? What do you propose? Do you propose to attach a lien to their property? to seize their property, to sell their property. I mean, literally, and you know, all of you probably know some small landlords that would do them in. What recourse if they just say, I may have it there, but I just can't afford that $10,000 or $15,000. What happens then? So that's something to think about. Article 7 in the ordinance under violations and penalties says on item A, number 1, page 11, says if the ordinance, and I said if the ordinance creates penalties for failure to vacate the premises during any testing of meth or any other controlled substance abatement, will the zone, and I think we may have addressed this, will the zoning officer execute that eviction instead of the landlord? And I think we addressed that, comes from Charleston.
Entirely.
Okay. Will the tenant, rather than the landlord, if they fail to vacate the property, be assessed at $500 a day rather than the landlord? It's our property, but it's the tenant. You know, we can't physically remove them, but if Charleston says they go, then I'm assuming that $500 per day penalty would not be a landlord responsibility?
That is correct.
Thank you. I'll write that down. Article A, number 2 and C. It says, if an official sign or notice regarding a meth or other controlled substance property violation and cleanup, a sign, is tampered with or removed, how can a landlord be held responsible and fined $500 a day for that infraction, especially in the case of absentee landlords? And this being political time, I actually said this to Rich. My thoughts immediately go to the political signs that keep coming up missing out of my yard. It would be very difficult to hold a landlord responsible at $500 a day because someone removed a sign. Now, Rich said they're a tougher sign to remove. Don't kid yourself.
Well, these are once they're attached,
They don't come off.
Okay.
they don't come off, yeah.
But-
But the concern is that attachment of that sign says that this particular piece of property is in fact
I understand.
unhealthy to enter. So, you know, the flip side of your questions, I think your questions are well taken, but the flip side of it is, suppose you don't do anything. Suppose that
Oh, no, I mean,
a house that was used.
proving removal.
Suppose a house that was used, as I'm aware of several houses that have been in this community, in the city of Buckhannon, were used to cook meth, have not been cleaned up. And now it's rewritten. And now children or adults or anybody is biologically harmed because they're in this atmosphere. Now where are the lawsuits coming from?
So why do we allow that?
Why do we allow?
I mean, why is that? You said it's happening. I'm just curious. You raised.
Because we don't
have this ordinance.
Okay. Well, it's state law, though. That's what
It is now. It
Okay.
wasn't 5 years
All right.
ago when these were done.
I'm almost done. It references members of the Buckhannon Municipal Court, which will have exclusive jurisdiction to hear and render decisions on this ordinance. Who are the members, or is it just Mr.
We have
Laverne?
the judge, yeah.
Just one person, okay. I'm going to offer some suggestions that some of us have talked about, just for your consideration. I hope you will take them seriously. Since there's sometimes a perception of a lack of cooperation and communication between city and county government, perhaps this particular instance presents an excellent opportunity for a joint effort to address the issue. Rather than chasing the city's drug problems to the county, perhaps working together could rid the entire area of these problems. And I'm suggesting, and some of the others would suggest, maybe some initial things. Allow the landlords, and I appreciate you all being proactive, Liz, but allow us to be proactive by tabling passage of this until we can do some other research. And obviously there's a lot of questions here I don't think anyone thought of, and I have others, but I tried to pare them down. I'm suggesting maybe we establish a panel of 5 to 7 members, if you include the county. If you don't, you can revise this, but include the city and the county attorney, the chief of police, the Upshur County Sheriff, or their designated representatives, at least one council member, at least one county commission member, president of the Upshur County Landlords Association, and perhaps 1 to 2 other landlords, to sit down and go through this and answer some of those questions that obviously we can't answer, and there's others out there. Develop a registry, that's the first thing I'm suggesting. Develop a registry of drug-related arrests and convictions in both the city and the county. And I do have the counties. They were gracious enough, and it actually gave me, I had the date of the arrest, the arrest person's name. It's a little vague because they have possession of controlled substance. That's where I came up with my numbers, and the arresting officer. But if we could combine that, because a lot of those folks are in the county going to be wanting to rent in the city too. So develop that registry. that combines both the city and the county arrests and convictions, perhaps whatever you want to do, for the past 3 to 5 years. Keep it updated regularly, provide it to the Landlords Association, and post it on the city's website. I would think if it's public record, that would be a quick and easy place to do
That's what we're
that.
providing for.
Okay. Also, since we're just in a dilemma with how to inspect and how to prevent this, is it possible to maybe assist in working with the Sheriff's Department to, now people are going to groan here in a minute, to get the canine, the drug canine available to landlords, to perhaps do periodic, non-invasive, perimeter-type drug-related searches. And then we could let our tenants know that that's a possibility, you know, to again, a preventive measure, you know, to keep them out. In retrospect, if City Council proceeds and goes ahead and doesn't table this ordinance, I would like to see some things, and several of us would like to see some included or some clarification. And I know you won't do this, but I would really like to see either removal of the words "other controlled substances" or a very specific reference to it. We just had the discussion about marijuana. Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But get very specific, because again, oxycodone, if it's strictly in pill form or whatever those things are, it doesn't leave a residue. But this opens that whole hole of what do we do if. And, you know, get the language more specific. Specific language regarding the types of substances and activities which would require an inspection and testing and potential cleanup once a person's arrested. There's nothing in here, and that's the hardest thing for me to hold down, is there's nothing in here, a vehicle to get restitution to the landlord from that perpetrator, or that, whatever you want to call that person. I hate to say druggie, but the person that was arrested, they're not all, as someone said, well, they're all going to be a bunch of bums, and they're not. There are people making meth and doing drugs that are in a different level of society, but there's nothing in the ordinance, and I think that would help the landlords if there was at least a vehicle in there to allow us to or allow the city to help us get restitution for those cleanup costs. And then, I don't know that you can do this, language possibly affirming the landlord's right to immediately evict a tenant arrested for the meth-related incident, which probably that's, without fear of retribution, that's going to come from the state. And that's kind of what the questions I have, and I'll give you guys copies of this. I've got some for the media. I'll give you one, David. So that's kind of my little summary of, we've done a lot of research, but I know we can do a lot more. We have talked to some of the abatement people and things like that. It's just getting some clarification. I hope we've maybe posed some questions that will give you pause to maybe not jump into this in 2 or 3 weeks and until we can, that's all I'm asking. That's all I'm hoping for, is to look at it a little more closely. Yes, Ron?
I have one more question to add to yours.
Okay.
I would, and talking with a neighbor today, a vacated house, the tenant left. The tenant had been being investigated for use of drugs and possible manufacturing of methamphetamine, of meth. But they left, they vacated the house. And we were discussing whether or not there is a machine out there that would allow or require testing in that vacant house now before it's leased to somebody else. Is there anything under the landlord law or anything else that would allow that? And we're really concerned in our neighborhood. And I've been in that house. I have been in the house, and I know that I came out with a terrible headache. I could have gotten a high if I stayed longer, I think. But the neighbors are worried about whomever gets put in that house if they have children. Is there a way to test to see if there was being manufactured?
There are independent test stores, yes. You don't have to go to Charleston.
No, but can we mandate to the owner that it be done?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, you've got a contingent of folks that are concerned about costs.
I realize
now you want to mandate costs that might not be necessary?
I'm concerned.
That's the balance that you got to strike.
This particular landlord is not, only has one, he's a very small lease situation.
These tests aren't, it's not like a pregnancy kit. It's an expensive
I know it is.
process.
Why would that be limited to rentals? What if I felt that your unit, your home,
Right.
your residence?
I agree,
Well, yeah,
I agree.
Huh? Because again, as Jody said, this really hits many high-income bracket people.
I know that.
This is not a poor man's
Yeah.
venture.
It's across the board.
It is across the board.
And I'm only doing this because of the situation I know, Randy, that's in my neighborhood. And I fear for whomever's going to move in there.
That's why I say residences too.
Yeah.
Private residences
Yeah.
who have children visiting other children, and we don't know what their parents are doing if
You're
there's a
right.
suspicion. Then who would mandate that, you know?
Yeah, I think we're getting out here on some tangents of
Well, there are a
what
few-
this ordinance is trying to accomplish. And certainly we want to work with landlords, and would like to have had you in here earlier. We've been talking about this for a long time.
Before we got to this point,
Yeah,
yes.
and would love to have had you in earlier. But
You know what Ron just mentioned, there is a possibility, again, that's something you would have to decide to accept. There are many testing kits out there. I know one or two of our landlords already has a meth test.
Okay.
And here's one that says substance drug test, surface drug testing, drug residue, and they say this is used by police. So you can go through here and there's pages. Here's one that is just meth, $9.95, and you can get bulk pricing, it's normally $50. It's a swab test. I mean, no, it's not gonna be something, but you can, some of these testing outlets, you can actually send the results once you swab it and send it in 2 or 3 days to a lab. Here's one that tests for hashish, marijuana, PCP, pure heroin, opium, I don't even know what that is, buprino, whatever, LSD, methadone, amphetamines, methamphetamines, and ketamine. It's a swab test. You know, here's others. I mean, there are ways to do some of these things. If you guys will have to I mean, it's a discussion I think that's worthy of pursuing versus going to someone for $700 to $1,000 to $2,000 in like the situation you're talking. It's out there, and it's, you know, some of these they say they're used by police.
But would you not think that a landlord would be willing to pay the $10 for that?
Absolutely.
Mr.
To
Mayor?
do that?
How do we know our own police department doesn't already have something like that?
Well, I'm just saying, I just got it for reference.
They may, but I'm talking about the legality of somebody
Right.
going into some place where they have been no arrests or anything like that.
Suspicion.
I would think the landlord would want to spend the $10 to find out whether or not it has been, and he knows darn well that they're suspect. Okay.
Any questions?
Hope I didn't interrupt too much.
No, no, no,
That
no.
was something.
I just, like I say, you all will have to do what you have to do, but hopefully you'll consider at least kind of, that's the whole thing, is just sitting down and having a further discussion on this and maybe ironing things out before you get to a passage and something we're stuck with. Thank you very much for your time.
okay, thank you.
Appreciate you.
Brings us to Department and Board reports. We're an hour and 45 minutes in, and we've touched 2 places.
It's a good night, Mayor.
Yeah,
Took an
sure.
hour.
And Michael, do you have a couple of items?
Yeah, I do, real quick. Okay, so I have to stay in the back. You have in front of you Resolution 2014-11. Excuse me, it's a general fund budget revision. Just want to remind council, we had an issue with our sewer line system at the college back in the wintertime. It's an expensive project, and we received $100,000 from the Infrastructure and Job Development Council, IJDC. There was also a $100,000 commitment from the general fund that council had approved. We've done pretty well to stave off having to use any of those funds. The problem is we're not getting our reimbursement back from IJDC. A little bit of a bureaucracy down in Charleston. So that's kind of forced us actually on the interim to have to contribute $50,000 of that $100,000. So what you see in front of you is a revision in Resolution 2014-11 that would transfer $50,000 from the City Council's capital outlay to the mayor's line item, sanitary board loan. Once that transfer, or once this resolution has been approved, that revision has been made, the $50,000 will be transferred over to the sanitary board to assist them with some costs in the interim of while we're waiting to still get reimbursed from the IJDC. So this is a commitment, again, that council committed, oh gosh, it's been 4 or 5 months ago. This is just $50,000 of that $100,000, and I'm hoping that we don't have to transfer the other $50,000. Hopefully, it looks like things are progressing with our reimbursement from IJDC, so I'll have to not come back to you, but in the interim, just to kind of keep the sanitary board moving along a little bit.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but did you have any idea how long it might be until they act on that?
Well, it's a long process. We worked at Region 7. Region 7 is the designee for IJDC to submit all information on a dashboard. Our project never got up on the dashboard down in Charleston. I don't know. It's been a long process, and we've been working with Carrie Smith with Region 7 to try to work that. It looks like we finally got some headway with that.
But we will get this money back.
Correct. In the meantime, we've been expending this money,
Right.
for an emergency project and haven't had any relief. So we need a little bit of assistance from general fund in the interim. So that's basically what this resolution is. It's just indicating that transfer.
Motion to approve resolution 2014-11. Motion made, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, would you call the roll, Rich? Roll call vote. Roll call vote.
Tom?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mayor?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
The next item is Resolution 2014-12. This is actually one of the draws I was talking about with IJDC. It's an additional draw in the amount of $45,600.87. With the subsequent draws that we have submitted to IJDC, we're hoping to get the committed portion from IJDC back hopefully soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But as you all know, with previous resolutions, we have to submit a resolution in resolution form to IJDC on behalf of the sanitary board in order to complete the process of making reimbursement claims. So that's exactly what resolution 2014-12 is. It's actually just a resolution authorizing us to submit claims for reimbursement to IJDC. No roll call necessary.
2013 is 1477.
Yes, yeah, you'll see it typed up there. It's resolution 2014-12.
Yeah.
But yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I move the passage of resolution 2014-12.
I second.
Motion made and seconded, requires only voice vote. All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We'll send it.
A couple of items real quick. Our audit is complete for the 12-13 fiscal year. We'll be distributing those items to you at our May 22nd meeting. I just received our audit back today. Didn't have time to put that on the agenda, so our May 22nd meeting, I'll be submitting our financial statements, our audit, to you. The next item is a health insurance update. We're working with Jamie Powell with Loudon Insurance. We did get some revised estimates back from Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. We're looking at another health insurance company, hoping to report to you back with a recommendation and discussion again on the May 22nd meeting. Some more to come on that one. Another item I just want to present as we're getting revenue in, our P&O tax on our contractors, which is something that we had singly isolated out. I just wanted to report, based off of the revenue intake that we've been receiving, we've received approximately, or will receive approximately, funds that would equal the amount of contracting of $5.5 million. We're not going to receive $5.5 million back, but according to our revenue receipts, we stand to get revenue in on $5.5 million worth of construction. In addition to the $12 million that's going out at the National Guard Armory, over the past 18 months, we're still in that current 18 months, we're looking at $17.5 million in construction that's happened within the city of Buckhannon, and that's pretty darn awesome in my opinion. Just wanted to mention that. And on home rule, I just want to state publicly, if anyone has any questions, council, anyone out in public, anyone on TV, anyone reads the paper, if you have any questions, give me a call, 472-1651, extension 1000. Love to talk to you. Had a couple people already called, extension 1000. All right, thanks.
Thank you. My questions? No, Mitch. There's Jay. There's Jay.
I'll be quick. I'm going to run through these rather quickly. Suddenlink fiber optic project, nothing new to report on it. Island Avenue, nothing new to report on it, other than that's the next project that I'll be concentrating the majority of my efforts on. Just recently, as yesterday, submitted a FEMA grant to the Division of Homeland Security and FEMA for a permanent generator at the Pickerton Booster Station and a retrofit of the electrical wiring at the raw water intake at the water treatment plant. So that will allow us to provide water to potable water to all the PSDs in times of power outages or emergencies without any loss or production of water. Again, I want to stress that we never lost that production, but this will just allow us to concentrate our portable generators at other locations and have more reliable backup power at these two locations. That generator grant was $102,000, $102,719, but the city would only be responsible for $25,679.75 as this grant, hazard mitigation grant program, is a 25% match. I opened up some water storage tank cleaning inspection bids on Monday, April 21st. That we received 3 bids. Utility Service Group with a bid of, and this is all in your information package, of $4,500. Pittsburgh Tank and Tower with a bid of $2,700, and Cortex bid of $15,720. However, due to non-compliance with the bid specifications regarding insurance, type of standards that would be used when cleaning and observing the tank, we had to throw out or disregard Pittsburgh Tank and Tower's bid. So I'm going to recommend to the Water Board that we, this is just an update for you all, to the Water Board that we accept Utility Services Group bid of $4,500. The second part of that was the of the cleaning of the water storage tanks. We did not allocate enough funds this fiscal year. The bids ranged from cleaning the tanks from $24,000 to $126,000, and we just didn't have that kind of money. I think there's a great range in there, and there's just too much left, too many uncertainties that I'd feel comfortable with, so we decided not to go ahead with the cleaning. But what these inspections will allow us to do is establish a baseline. Once the inspections and the report are back, we'll be able to see which tanks need cleaning the most, and Michael and I in the water department will develop a long-term plan to address those cleaning of the tanks. McDonald's Route 20 lane lighting, nothing new to report. Public safety complex, I am glad to report that we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a brighter light. There's only 5 major tasks left to complete. The installation of the restroom equipment and partitions, hopefully sometime within the next 3 to 4 weeks. The installation of the doors and the hardware. The doors are scheduled to arrive next Tuesday, and we hope to have those up in a couple days. Cleaning and waxing of the floors. Installation of the stucco/EFA system on the outside. If you've driven by where the bricks and windows have been removed from the old Rite Aid pharmacy, we're going to put back a stucco finish on that. And then construction of the ADA compliant ramp down the south side, or the side that faces the parking lot. I am very positive, and I hope nothing goes wrong. We will be in mid-June. I really see that as a target date, if not sooner. But that's where we are. Gateway East, Jerry will be reporting on that very shortly. We're going to resume those construction activities after the Strawberry Festival and the installation of the playground equipment at the city park. Water treatment plant improvements project, preliminary design continues, and we hope to have those contract documents ready by the end of 2014 with an anticipated construction date start of spring 2015. Finally, quarter 8 south water line, nothing new to report from the last time.
Questions for Jay?
Can you say anything about the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The line painting out here at the corner of Florida and
Mr. O'Neill, I am going to report on that when I present Jerry's report.
Are you going to do Jerry's report?
Yes, I am. It's going to take a lot longer than my report.
I withdraw my question.
Yeah, one thing to say about your report, it sounds like we need more money, so everybody use more water, we'll get more money.
More water, yes.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Sorry to take this so long. Jay's done such a great job presenting the other side. Thanks, Jerry. Playground equipment, the installation is going to start next week. I believe the weather and some delays on some key pieces of the equipment, you know, the foundation parts. I think some delays there prevented us from starting earlier, but he reports that we're going to be starting that next week. He's glad to report that pothole patching continues. Some good news is we also received the engine back for the Bobcat so that we can resume eradicating of some of those larger potholes and areas of the street that's going to require more than just a simple patch. We'll be getting on those next week. Light poles, hence the reason Jerry's not here, due to the low traffic volume that is occurring right now as I speak. They are painting and installing the signage on the light poles along Main Street at this time. Also, he plans on starting the curb painting and cleaning up around the curbs and weed eating and all that next week. Sounds like Jerry's got a very busy week next week. And they've completed installation at Jawbone Park. To answer Mr. O'Neill's question, I believe that they had 2 or 3 meetings, Mayor. Yesterday you all had that with the DOH. Our request, we had a different idea of how it was going to be laid out, that it was going to be straight through with some additional parking spaces against the Chapman Technical Group and the Intellos curb. They sent it back to engineering. I think that's where it's being left. You know, we still got to get the official decision from them, but they hear our concerns, and I think they're going to address it. I know the mayor was in that meeting, and he may be able to add some additional information.
Well, I was asked why. I said I had no clue.
That's why it was laid out the way it
I always
was.
did it. Would like for the paper to print, and for anybody watching there this evening, it's okay to turn left onto the bridge here.
Right. Even though the existing
put the arrow there with a straight through and a right turn, and there's no way to turn left if you pay the. You may turn left after you stop and look around, and we're going to get it fixed.
But does that answer your question? I mean, they're looking at it. It's going to be a straight through with the turn in 3 directions.
I guess, so it's DOH that screwed up.
It's,
DOH strike.
That's state highway. They control that.
Yeah.
But the argument we made was, why do you make that intersection different than all the other intersections on Main Street? So I think they're going to fix it.
In the meantime, tell them to fix the railroad trestle, the smoothness down there next to the donut shop too, again and again.
Yeah, the parade doesn't go down there, so.
That doesn't matter. It's rough hauling.
But I don't think we'll get, they indicated we wouldn't have that by the festival. So I think we're gonna have to do something. Maybe go out there and paint that arrow and make a trident out of it so that people will understand that from out of town, there's, oh yeah, I can turn left, you know, so.
Leave the barrels there.
Yeah, and probably leave the barrels. Probably leave the barrels. But we'll work something out. Go ahead, Jerry.
Any other questions for Jerry or Jay?
Okay.
Then I'm finished.
Thank you.
And the steak dinner.
Jerry, you forgot to talk about the sale of used street sweeper, but I think Michael mentioned that.
Yes, I think.
And in your packet, you have a copy of the signed agreement for the cemetery mowing, which that has been executed and is in process. Rich?
Just a reminder that the city election is occurring now. Early voting is taking place at the courthouse. The city precincts will have the city ballot as part of that primary ballot, as well as the school board and the regular primary ballots for all the precincts. If in fact you are registered as independent, you will have to request either a Democratic or Republican ticket if you so desire. If you don't say anything, you will only get that portion that's nonpartisan, which is the school board and the city, assuming that you're in a city precinct. Actual election day is May 13th, but early voting has begun, will continue only at the courthouse until May 10th, Saturday, May 10th. During regular business hours, Saturday, it's open from 9 to 5, I believe. The primary election date of May 13th will not be at the courthouse, will be at the regular precinct locations. And I just encourage you to remember that the school board election, the city election are decided at this time. There is no voting then, it's not a primary as far as those nonpartisan elections are concerned. And there are a number of individual offices that will be decided in the primary because there is no contender or candidate filed for the other party in November. So it's time to vote. Question?
No, I'm just going to make a comment.
Sure.
Next Thursday, a week from today, I'm trying to get messages to everyone. It will be a candidate night sponsored by the Landlords Association, 6 p.m. at the Buckhannon Moose Lodge. And I tried to get everyone a message if I missed somebody, because I hadn't heard back from a few. Just so you know, 6 p.m. next Thursday, the Buckhannon Moose Lodge, and we're sponsoring. It'll be just refreshments, Q&A, meet and greet. Not everybody votes early, so Tom, Rich, I think that, anybody would love to have you.
Robin, Mary?
Yes, yeah, love to have, yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking that way. Patrick,
That's all I have.
Any questions for Rich?
I think we might
Buddy?
add that the library levy is up for renewal.
City library levy is up for renewal as part of the ballot is for the city precincts.
Okay. David?
Mayor, just a few quick things. I reported that the deeds were in the work last time with AFP Resources. That's all been recorded. There's a cover letter that went to Mark Carroll a few days ago from me, so that's completely behind us. We have received word from Bill Ehlenfeld, the federal prosecutor. A copy of his letter is in your packet, and I have responded. At least Mr. Doss and Chief Gregory will be going on May 12th to meet with Bill Ehlenfeld and the task force up there to see if they can persuade some confiscated monies coming back Buckhannon's way. So more to follow on that. The City of Greece, New York case involving moments of silence and prayer before municipal legislative bodies. It was anticipated that the U.S. Supreme Court would rule on that case last Friday. There's now speculation that they will rule as early as tomorrow, that there'll be an opinion coming down. So that's one that folks have interest in. In the Angus slip and fall case that was reported last time, answers have been filed by the defendants, including the City of Buckhannon, and that matter will now evolve into the discovery phase of the litigation. And I've been contacted by both the fire department and the Starkville Youth Center folks regarding their 2014 Friendly Way Day and Service to Youth Champion honorees, and I'd prefer to promote those names with you in executive session as we are permitted to do. That's all I have, unless you all have questions for me.
Question for David? In your correspondence, you have a letter to City Council from a member of the Buckhannon community, which you can read. This letter from Ehlenfeld and from Buckhannon, Creighton Buckhannon requesting assistance of Jawbone Park for Walk of Valor, which we'll take up in due time. Consent agenda is approval of minutes of the regular meeting of April 17th. Billing and wire permits, payment of bills, and appointment of Callie Sams to the Park and Recreation Board. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion made, Pam. Second?
Second.
Second, Barag. Discussion. All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Strategic issues for discussion and vote. This is the first reading of ordinance number 380, home rule.
Mayor, I'll go quickly. Ordinance number 380, the City of Buckhannon, an ordinance authorizing the City of Buckhannon's application for home rule status, including the filing of the city's written home rule plan with the state of West Virginia's Municipal Home Rule Board. Whereas Article 6, Section 39A of the Constitution of West Virginia, which was ratified on November 3, 1936, captioned Home Rule for Municipalities, specifically provides, I read that a little earlier, and whereas in 2007, the West Virginia Legislature enacted the Municipal Home Rule Pilot Program embodied by the statutory provisions of Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 5A of the West Virginia Code, and whereas effective July 1, 2013, the West Virginia Legislature amended the Municipal Home Rule Pilot Program to expand the program to authorize as many as 20 municipalities to participate in the expanded pilot program until July 1, 2019. And whereas Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 5A, Paragraph F of the West Virginia Code as amended specifically provides that on or before June 1, 2014, a municipality desiring to participate in the Municipal Home Rule Pilot Program shall submit a written plan to the Municipal Home Rule Board. And whereas Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 5A, Paragraph G of the West Virginia Code specifically provides that prior to submitting its written plan to the board, the municipality shall, 1, hold a public hearing on the written plan, 2, provide notice at least 30 days prior to the public hearing by a Class 2 legal advertisement, 3, make a copy of the written plan available for public inspection at least 30 days prior to the public hearing, and 4, after the public hearing, adopt an ordinance authorizing the municipality to submit a written plan to the Municipal Home Rule Board after the proposed ordinance has been read 2 times, and whereas the Council of the City of Buckhannon previously authorized the preparation of a written home rule plan for the City of Buckhannon, a copy of which plan is appended herewith, and further which plan is expressly made a part of this authorizing ordinance, and whereas the City of Buckhannon now has fully complied with all statutory provisions of Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 5A, Paragraph G of the West Virginia Code, as provisions are herein above set forth. And finally, whereas the City Council now fully approves in its entirety the appended written home rule plan, and further formally authorizes the submittal of the City of Buckhannon's home rule plan for consideration by the Municipal Home Rule Board, and in so doing to formally have the City of Buckhannon apply in all respects for designation as a home rule municipality. The findings that follow generally track the combination of what I've just read, whereas was, and there's some things in here in case you missed it as Michael was going through those things that you can and cannot do with home rule. They are lifted entirely out of the code. This is entirely a cut and paste job when you get into subarticles F and G on page 3 and 4. As we get over to the administrative provisions, I'll just read it real quickly. It's short. Article 2 on page 5, upon selection as a home rule municipality, the City of Buckhannon shall, A, be permitted to amend its written plan at any time, but only in compliance with the statutory provisions of the Home Rule Act. B, commencing December 1, 2015, and each year thereafter, provide a home rule progress report to the Municipal Home Rule Board. And C, cooperate fully with all performance evaluations undertaken by the State Legislative Auditor's Office or any other state agency assigned to evaluate the execution of the City of Buckhannon's home rule plan. Article 3 is our standard severability clause, the effective date, first reading, second reading. I would just remind council that you've moved the 15th to the 22nd as your next meeting, so that's when you would consider this on second reading if you approve it tonight on first reading. It's my recommendation that the council consider now on first reading ordinance number 380 of the City of Buckhannon.
I'd like to enthusiastically move the adoption of ordinance 380.
Motion made, is there a second?
Enthusiastically second.
Okay, let's all enthusiastically vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You can tell Michael has led us, but we're very excited about the possibilities here.
And I'd like to publicly acknowledge and thank his extremely hard work on this project.
No state dinner for you guys.
No stuff. Okay, first reading ordinance 381, meth abatement.
We have been over this all the way going back to last November, so I'm going to read this by caption only. The only cosmetic changes made to this were to reflect the moving of the meeting schedule from the 15th to May 22nd. Everything else is the same substance you've had since the end of March, okay? Ordinance number 381 of the City of Buckhannon. An ordinance 1, adopting the United States Environmental Protection Agency's guidelines for methamphetamine laboratory cleanup, revised edition March 2013, and B, the State of West Virginia's Code of State Rules Title 64, Series 92, entitled Clandestine Drug Laboratory Remediation, enacted pursuant to Chapter 60A, Article 10, Section 1, et sec. Of the West Virginia Code as amended, 2, establishing notification procedures, and 3, establishing violations and penalties. Since this is one of those quasi-building code kinds of ordinances, and the state code says that municipalities shall conduct a public hearing and shall have a legal advertisement talking about the public hearing, to be extra careful, we're going to do it the same way we did it the first time we did this back in December, January. So you'll see a legal ad in the paper starting next week, a Class 2 ad, and then you'll have a public hearing on May 22 to consider this further if you adopt this tonight on first reading.
I have a question.
Question.
Do you think we should meet with the landlords? I kept saying homeowners, that's not right. Landlords again to get more input between them and us on this final bill, as I know they have more questions before we even implement this tonight.
You've got 3 weeks to meet before the second reading, number 1. Number 2, I think the idea of working with the county is a superb one, but it's not necessary that if the county said no to it, I would still fervently recommend to the city that we do it anyway.
And even if they said yes, we'd still have to enact this anyway.
We still have to enact the ordinance.
Absolutely you would.
And they would have to enact their.
I would strongly recommend that if we do vote on this tonight and approve it, that we set up a meeting with the Landlords Association to address this situation again before we have the next reading of it.
Can this be amended on second reading?
It cannot.
It cannot be amended on second reading.
If it's amended, we have to go to a third reading.
That's correct. That is correct. If it's a typo or something, yeah.
But
like
substantive changes would have to
substantive
go to the
changes
third reading.
cannot be made on the same reading at which the ordinance is approved.
Does it have to be done this soon? Is there a reason? I mean, is there a reason that it needs to be done in May?
And I had a few more questions too, if it would be appropriate to ask before you do something.
Well,
Yeah, you're on the list.
maybe it would be a good idea for us to table this first reading until May the 22nd.
Thank you, Mayor.
No,
that's a-
don't thank me yet.
Okay.
That's
Thank you
my
for saying.
suggestion. The council decides, not me.
Yeah.
I'd like to make that motion.
I move to table this ordinance number 381 until the meeting of May the 22nd for first
I
reading.
would second that.
So what do we do in the meantime?
Well, in the meantime, I think we need to hear from y'all.
I think we need to sit down,
Yeah,
somebody from council.
we need to find a time and a place, and we
Maybe
need
with
to, we've got Strawberry Festival, we got some other things coming up. The reason we're meeting the 22nd is because of Strawberry Festival. Things are busy, you all are busy, you're cleaning up. You all get together, Joni, get them together and find a time when it's convenient for y'all, and some of us or all of us will try to meet with you.
Yeah.
I'd like to get the mayor or the chief of police involved.
Yeah.
I mean, on that side, and I mean, if you don't need to do it by the 22nd, I mean, that's what I don't know if there's a, if you post it out there, because you're right, there's Strawberry Festival, there's this and that, just to clarify some things. Yes,
Right,
Tom?
and it seems to me that substantively, I don't know that there's a whole lot to change. I think what we're talking about here is clarification,
Pretty much.
right? And we want to make sure that your concerns are clearly accounted for in the ordinance. Because I think a lot of what the ordinance does substantively are things that are already provided for in state law, but that gives the city police and it gives you all some additional tools, you know, that don't exist with just the state code. So, I think what we're not talking about a lot of substantive changes to the ordinance, that we're just talking about making sure that things like the liability issues that you raised are particularly addressed. And I don't know that there's a great deal of disagreement over the things that you want. I mean, is that a fair reading?
And we'll get a chance to look over your questions and see if we can provide some answers by doing a little bit of research. And you understand about law, we can do some research. I'm not a lawyer, I've got two sitting here and but they'll agree with me. We can come up with doing some research and provide you an answer, and we don't know what that answer is until it's decided in court. We can only suggest.
Would you have any objection if we invite, there's a gentleman, actually he's on the first of the list of the meth contractors, they call him, and he has 500 rental units, but he's also a certified meth abatement inspector, and he was going to try to come up tonight, but it was kind of short notice. Would you have any objection to including him? Because he's actually had meth labs in his property, so he really has seen the whole gamut of
I'd
that.
also like to see if you'd include the president of the county commission.
Yeah,
And
if you
the
can't
county
get to work together,
administrator,
maybe
if
we
it's
can.
possible, you know. If he can't come, include the county administrator. I would love to see this be a joint county-city operation. And I'm also one that would love to see sometime a joint county-city government.
What's a good day for y'all?
What about Tuesdays?
Tuesday the 6th? Next Tuesday?
To meet?
Yeah, next Tuesday?
That's the 6th.
Festival's the next week.
Tuesday the 6th.
Are you available? Evening? Day? I'll just check with this guy and see. But that's next Tuesday?
Evening,
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock here, tentative.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with him and see if he can. The other gentleman here locally, David Beckner, also wanted to come this evening, but he was just not available. He had a kid in soccer. What he did. Tentatively, yeah.
Did we get a motion on
The table?
table?
We did a
Did we
motion.
vote?
And a second, we didn't vote.
We didn't vote. All in favor of tabling the ordinance until the 22nd, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The ayes have it. And we have a tentative meeting. Everybody look at your calendars and try to get back to us. Tuesday, May the 6th, 7 o'clock here. All right? Special council meeting, tentative. We'll put the agenda out already, and we have time, don't we?
I'm confused. We're having a special council meeting or just a?
It's council
It's just
session.
a-
Just a work session.
It's,
I thought it was just a discussion of.
Okay, it's a working session.
It's a working
not a council
session,
meeting.
yeah.
Okay, so it's a working session.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And we can meet and collect the information without having a official meeting. Okay? Okay. That takes care of the ordinance. That brings us to comments. Ron?
Only 17 or 18, Mayor.
Scratch them off quick.
First of all, have you and Rich had time to go up and check out that alley on, between Barber and,
I have not.
well, I have a possible solution since that is a halfway, the alley's not even open, but one of the, I talked to Brooks Jones today and he thinks a solution would be, since it is a city alley, even though it's closed, if we could put a no parking sign within that alleyway right there, that would keep that particular part open, nobody parking there, because the landlord of the one house is telling people that they can park in that alley. And that's been a major problem with the neighborhood, and I think that might be a solution, and rather than go through a complete opening. That's just a suggestion.
Hey, no parking in the alley?
Yeah.
We'll look at it.
Another, has the Cracker Tinney situation been completely taken care of? Has he cleaned it up sufficiently for everybody? I think not.
The part that's on the concrete is cleaned up.
Oh, he did a good
Anything-
sweeping job.
Yeah, anything in
Yeah.
the dirt is not.
I think it's time, oh man, I hate to say this every time, we really need to come down on him somehow and make him clean that property up like it was said. We've issued 2, whatever you call them, warrants or whatever, instructing him what to do and giving him 2 different timelines to complete, and he has not complied with it.
Well, we can wait until our home rule application
I-
is approved.
I think that right this very minute, we ought to take that up and have our city judge issue a subpoena for him, and he indicated that he would be perfectly willing to go to jail. Let's give him the opportunity. You know, I'm getting tired of being made a fool of by somebody that's trying to make us fools. And we do a good enough job of that sometimes ourselves.
Mayor, if I might add, Councilman Thomas has been in negotiations with a couple of different folks regarding the
That fell
acquisition of that property, and he asked that it be continued and tabled until he could have further discussions with those players. So it's, you know, Mr. Tenney's property, it's 98, 99% compliant now, and I'm always back to this preaching about arbitrary and capricious, and he sure doesn't make the top 10 list at this point, Mr. Pugh. I'm just saying, if we get too far into putting somebody in jail when we have worse perpetrators, we have some issues with that. I want to be careful. I don't want us to get in trouble.
Right, but my stand on is that we have the ordinances, we have told him what to do, what's going to come down, and he has not done it. If we don't complete what we said we were going to do, then it's just like me telling my kids, you'll go to bed without your supper, but when I don't do it, then they're going to go ahead and do it and do it and do it. And what he has continued to do is exactly that. I think we should go ahead and issue the warrant. I don't think it has anything to do with acquisition of property or anything else by somebody else. I think we should do what we said we were going to do.
Well,
So there.
I think that Cracker Tenney has done a whale of a job on that place. If you look at where it was and the resources that he's had available to him to do what he's done, I think he's done a bang-up job. And I, for one, think we pressed the issue about as far as we need to. I agree with Dave. We've mitigated that hazard that everybody complained about. It was so dangerous for the kids with them playing in the building and the broken glass and all the other things that could have been going on. We found at one point in time we took some pretty nasty chemicals out of there, and that's gone. And I think that you can only beat a horse so hard. And I think that Cracker has done his thing. Now, I'm one vote here at this point in time, and if anybody else wants to wade in on this, but I don't see anything to be gained by putting Cracker Tenney in jail. I just don't see anything to be gained by it.
I see that he has cleaned up the majority of it. As far as dangerous glass, I haven't walked over it any. I know that the asbestos is gone. I also know that the city has paid permits and stuff for him to do that and got.
No.
Well,
no.
we got.
City didn't.
We got his permits going for him.
No, the city did not do that.
Then who did it?
I did.
Well, good for you.
There
Good
were
for you.
myself and others took money out of our pockets to help them get that going.
Well,
I'm not looking for any reimbursement,
You're not
but
gonna get
I think, just to make it clear, the city did not.
fine, I appreciate that because I wasn't aware of that. I
That's
know you
the way
don't
I-
want to toot your own horn, so there you go.
No, I'm not tooting mine. There
But-
are others who dug in their pockets.
There are also a hazard to children walking to school there now because the debris that is left there is sharp and jagged, and you see kids walking over it. I think it's still a hazard to the school children as they walk to school and play when they're not supposed to be playing there, just like the trailer was there. They were in and out of it. I still think it needs to be cleaned up, and I still think Cracker Tenney ought to be the one to do it. And I'm not for letting him off, and if it was anybody else, I'd be the same way. I don't like being taken advantage of, and especially at taxpayers' expense. So that's my argument, and whatever you want to do, I will. Can I make a motion on it now, or do we just discuss it?
Well, there's nothing on the agenda.
Nothing, I
Mr.
know,
Mayor,
there's nothing on the
maybe I could get
agenda.
some volunteers to go over there and clean that place up for him.
Well,
Yeah, but you know what, I'm gonna say something too. When those kids go on that property, Ron, they're trespassing.
Yes, they are. But you know, a 7-year-old kid doesn't know what trespass is. And your kids, my kids, and everybody else's kids, and me when I was younger, did the same thing. We just weren't in a lawsuit situation then. And I fear for some of those kids getting hurt there, and that's one reason, but the main reason is I don't like Mr. Tenney taking advantage of us. And we have been taken advantage of by him.
Mayor, I'm going to say this again, in all due respect to Mr. Pugh. It's not a vote of the city council to have me
Absolutely
prosecute
not.
somebody in municipal.
No.
That is my job. That is part of my job description. And I won't do anything to imperil the litigative posture of this city. If I can't prevail in municipal court with my friend and colleague Randy Tenney, I mean, I can't lay it out any clearer. I would have a difficult time as municipal prosecutor for the last 31 years prevailing in this instance, given the many other properties that are far worse than Mr. Tenney's right now. I mean, we would be arbitrary, capricious, and vindictive, and we'd be opening ourselves to potential civil litigation.
And we should not be arbitrary.
Can't be arbitrary and capricious.
We should enforce every ordinance that we've got on the books.
But if we
To the
want
best of our abilities.
we would need, I think, 3 permit officers, Mr. Pugh. I mean, we could, that's another discussion, but there's a lot of properties worse than Mr. Tenney's right now. That's my concern.
Well, they haven't been in the form of anything except the one up that we can't do anything about. That'll be the last I say about it.
Well, I'm with you. I understand what your position is.
But I'm really upset. So there. The other thing is, I understand that the insurance bid from Highmark came back at considerably lower. Is that right?
They have sent us, it's kind of funny, they sent us a renewal. That was lower than the 16.6%.
That was lower.
That was lower than the 12.
Okay.
So I asked Jamie to go back and dig further. So we've got it down to roughly 6%. But we're waiting for an estimate back from Coventry, because we've already sent that out, we've already got that information. So I want to collect that in and look at that versus the resharpened pencil, if you will, from Highmark. We've probably got their best offer that they're going to do at the lowest that they're going to do, and I'm okay with that, but I want to see what the other one comes in before I approach you all.
Then I won't say anything at all about being irate at their used car tactics about giving us rates lower now after we rejected them at a higher bid. I don't like that. I don't like being held hostage by anybody, insurance companies or anybody. So that's gone.
They've kind of done that. I mean,
they have. Yeah. I know. Yeah. And the last thing, we have an unsigned letter in here that, as far as I'm concerned, is from a non-entity. If you write City Council a letter and you refuse to sign your name to it, then you don't exist. I don't like it. If you're afraid to come forward and state your name on an issue, if you're too much of a coward to do that, I have to do that every day we have a meeting here. I have to bring up stuff in open meetings that I'd rather not talk about because I've got friends that I might offend because of it. But it's an open meeting. I'm an elected person. I have to. And I resent the fact that you send us a letter and do not sign it. So, as far as I'm concerned, the letter we've got does not exist. And you, sir or madam, are a coward.
I gotta say this, Ron and I are probably gonna get knuckles after it. I couldn't disagree with you more. This gentleman or lady gave their reasons for wanting to remain anonymous, which I accept. And I believe that Ron, you're speaking for yourself, not for the city.
Well, I'm speaking for myself, that's right.
Okay.
And for other people that I feel I'm speaking for. I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't tell you what I felt about anonymous letters and anonymous people. It's like they said to do this. Who are they? Nobody.
On a brighter note, I would just like to express my excitement for Strawberry Festival, which will intervene between now and our next meeting, and just welcome all the visitors to our fair city, and encourage everyone to really enjoy themselves, enjoy all of the activities, and thank the Strawberry Festival Association, all of its volunteers, for the many, many hours of volunteer labor they've put in to make the festival a great success, and just an absolute outstanding representation of Buckhannon, and that's all.
Thank you, Tom. Rich?
I like strawberries, but I must admit, I appreciate the letter from the anonymous individual. And I feel pretty sad that the individual had to write that letter and maintain their anonymity. I would hope that this community is very open and receptive to folks of all faiths, of all colors, of all religions, of all sexual persuasions, whatever category you want to try to open up. One reason I have found Buckhannon such a wonderful place to be is because of that openness and because of the friendliness. Now, I must admit, it is not received by 100% of individuals. I could give you many, many experiences when individuals have talked to me, as is the case with this person, who are very disappointed in some of the attitudes that the city has. So I think it's kind of sad it has to be anonymous.
I think it's sad.
But it
too.
is. And I think it is for a reason. That's all I have.
John? Pam?
I just want to thank the Landlords Association for appearing tonight. I totally agree. You definitely have some valid concerns. I'm glad we tabled it. And I'm glad that you brought up some things that I wasn't aware of, wasn't even thinking about. Other than that, I just want to wish everybody a good time at the Strawberry Festival. Try to clean up your properties, make them presentable, and welcome the people from out of town. And just have a great time.
Okay, I guess that brings us, we have a short executive session about some property negotiations. We'll not be making any decisions. I entertain a motion to enter into executive session 698-4 for property negotiation. Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no, the ayes have it. That means y'all can leave. Thank you for coming.